So, as you can see, the Vickers Vincent's here, and that's thanks to the fundraising that we did over the past sort of month and a half or so. Thanks very much to everybody who contributed to the fundraiser to get this here. It's come down from North Shore, and it's down here for 2 months or so?
Another 2 months.
Yep, another 2 months. And Steve and Nick Shen over the back there and a few others have put it together, put it back up on its wheels, and because it was all dismantled to transport it. This is the only one in the world that you'll ever see of a Vickers Vincent. And this is a what year was this built?
1932?
Yeah, this is a 1932 bomber. It's a general reconnaissance bomber. They originally, Vickers, a very famous company in Britain, originally built the wildebeest, which if you've been to the Wigram Museum, you may have seen the wildebeest down there that's been restored. That is also the only one in the world. The wildebeest was designed as a torpedo bomber, and when the RAF said we want a general reconnaissance bomber, Vickers went, well, we could just slightly modify the design of the wildebeest and basically take all the torpedo gear off the bottom, and they modified it so that it could take a big fuel tank and extend the range. And there's a difference to the tail, isn't there?
Trim tab. The Vincent's got a trim tab, whereas the wildebeest's got a fully floating tail, so it's got like a screw jack. So that's pretty much the difference. And one carried bombs, the other carried a torpedo, and I think that's about it. Yeah. One was coastal command, and the other was army cooperation in the desert.
So where did this one serve originally before it came to New Zealand?
You know, Dave, you probably know more than I do about that. So you just go for that, and into the RNZAF, because I'll just stick to the restoration side of it.
So I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head. That's why I fired it to you. But I'm pretty sure this was with number 55 Squadron RAF, and served in Iraq, I think it was. Yeah, yep. So there was a lot of sort of peacekeeping stuff being done over in Iraq. Basically, if the Arab tribes started to revolt, they'd send out the Vincents and bomb the crap out of them. That's pretty much what it was doing, I guess, but it was just patrolling and various things like that. And come the late 1930s, there was a lot of progress in aviation, and the RAF had started to retire these, even though they're only a few years old. And there was an offer made to the New Zealand government, who was operating the wildebeest. And we initially bought 12 new back in 1935. As the 1930s progressed, it looked like we needed to really gear up for war. We had hardly anything in the Air Force. Seems familiar, doesn't it? And so the New Zealand government did this fantastic deal to buy around about 100 wildebeests and Vincents, all second-hand, that were coming off the front lines of various Iraqi squadrons and Egyptian squadrons and various RAF squadrons around the world. I think even some of them were based in southern England. And they all ended up getting shipped over to New Zealand. This particular one, when it arrived, went to Hobsonville, and it joined, when it was assembled, it joined the Auckland the Auckland Territorial Squadron, and this is just before the war. The Territorial Squadron had been formed in March 1938. They initially had some Baffins there. They needed more aircraft. They supplemented them with, I think it was around about 6 or 8 of the Vincents. And they started to patrol all around the Auckland coastal area, patrolling the waterways as reconnaissance aircraft. They basically did the same job as the Orions and the P-8s are doing now, just making sure there was no enemy shipping about, or if there was search and rescue, they'd be sent out to search for people, or pretty much exactly what 5 Squadron has been doing ever since. And 5 Squadron started with some of these aircraft back in the 1940s, with these and short Singapores. This aircraft, when the war began, the Auckland Territorial Squadron overnight became the Auckland General Reconnaissance Squadron, because all the territorials were mobilised, and this happened to the Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch squadrons. So it became a full-time defence of New Zealand, and this was the main defence of New Zealand. We had 2 ships in the Navy, and we had the Auckland Squadron with these things, and we had a squadron in Wellington, which moved over to Blenheim as soon as the war began, and we had a squadron in Christchurch, and they were the entire defence of this country, apart from the army. You know, this is the defence until the invasion got on our shore. So can you imagine? I mean, this is still better than what we've got now. But this particular aircraft served with the General Reconnaissance Squadron until March 1940, and at that point the government decided to merge all 3 of the General Reconnaissance Squadrons into one, and they went to Whenuapai, which had only just opened. It was the first unit there, and it became the New Zealand General Reconnaissance Squadron. Because they merged 3 squadrons together, they decided to make the General Reconnaissance Squadron Baffins only, so the Baffins from Christchurch and Wellington and the couple that they had at Hobsonville all went to Whenuapai, and the Vincents became surplus. So this Vincent, along with all of its mates, went down to Ohakea, and they formed the Air Gunners and Air Observers School, and that was training new air observers and air gunners who were going through the process of doing their training here and then off to the RAF and onto Bomber Command or Coastal Command. So this aircraft flew for, I think, just over a year with that school, and then it ended up going to number 2 Squadron, which was the General Reconnaissance Squadron in Nelson, patrolling all around the Nelson area. And then it ended up with number 22 Squadron Army Cooperation still based at Ohakea. They were working with the Army to get them used to being attacked by aircraft or to hide from aircraft, all this sort of thing. As part of the Army training was to camouflage and make sure that you can't be found from the air. And then the last thing that this aircraft did, still at Ohakea, is it joined one operational training unit, and it towed the targets for the Hudsons and probably also, I think, the Oxfords that had the gun turrets on them, and they would fire their guns at the targets that this old thing was towing along. So it had quite a varied role, general reconnaissance, training role, and army cooperation. So it did a lot of stuff. In 1944, it was declared surplus and broken up, and it ended up going to a scrap dealer, I'd imagine, in Marton, and he got a few of these aircraft, didn't he, I think? And basically it ended up getting buried, and you know the story from here on.
It is a brilliant story, and my father, I'll just tell you a bit of my dad's background, well, not background, but just something that happened recently as far as our collection goes. I'll just move forward a bit. Yep. All right. There's two Great Barrier Airlines that operate out of North Shore. They operate Britain Norman Islanders and Britain Norman Trilanders, and they were surplus. There was 2 of them surplus to requirement. They had been broken up, and they were ready for the scrap man to arrive. And they were stacked on top of each other, and nobody wanted them. They're just waiting for the scrap truck. And I thought to myself, when I was down at the airfield, I thought, oh gosh, I hope Dad doesn't see these. And that's pretty much that he did see them, and they're now at our place. You know, they're saved. He thought, well, somebody will want them. Somebody will want them. He's got to save them because one day somebody might want them. Yeah, so all right. So that's the story. That's the Dad's mindset. And so what happened was, and it's interesting because Ian Goldingham's here. I've now thrown you under the bus. He was one of the team from MOTAT that was alerted to the wildebeests and Vincents that were starting to emerge on a riverbank in Marton. Is that pretty cool? That's pretty close, yeah. Okay, so a wildebeest or Vincent was starting to show itself as this river eroded down in Marton. So, and it was a myth and a legend that these big biplanes had been put in a pit, cut up into 4 pieces, each cut up into 4 pieces, thrown into a pit and run over with a bulldozer. One of my volunteers at MOTAT is he picnicked on the site, and they were all apparently there's Vincents or there's old biplanes buried here. Well, they started to emerge, and a team from MOTAT, bless MOTAT, I can't believe the MOTAT history and how early they were into preservation. Nobody wanted them. They weren't that interested, but it was, well, let's go and see. And anyway, I could be making a meal of this, and Ian was there, so he was part of the team that dug them all out. Dug all of this wreckage out. So the MOTAT team, and there is quite good photos of them. It's like archaeologists digging up dinosaurs. There they are. They start to emerge. It's quite incredible. And the boys got it all back to Point Chev, back to MOTAT. MOTAT 1. That's where our pump house is. And one of the airframes was good enough that they just started to put it together. And it was NZ 102, Vickers Wildebeest, that's now at Wigram. And it's a huge task, a big aeroplane. And I mean, the metal was in terrible condition, but it was there. You could see it. And one of the guys, Murray Lane, did a pretty good job of proving that we could do that. You could make something of this, and Wigram loved it. Everybody loved this NZ 102 coming together. So eventually, Wigram ended up taking it away from MOTAT with a package as best, because of course there's no drawings for these aeroplanes. So they had a big package together, shipped it off to Whenuapai. It sat at Whenuapai. Everything sat at Whenuapai for about 18 months, 2 years. Meanwhile, anything surplus was just dumped. So there's a lot of wreckage. The boys had gone through it all to make sure that Wigram didn't miss out on anything. The rest of it was all going into a big skip at Ardmore here somewhere, over the back here somewhere. So, in typical Dad, just like the Islanders and Trilanders, Great Britain Norman Islanders and Trilanders up at Great Barrier Airlines, he said, somebody might be able to do something with this lot. So he made sure that it didn't go into the tip. So all that wreckage, all that surplus stuff, especially the big piece of turtle deck, which is the big aluminium section, the big piece that said NZ311. So it's a registration. It's her registration. I put the K number on it, the RAF registration on it, because I want to one day meet the king. You never know. Prince Charles, actually, we got a Hawker Hind, and Prince Charles stopped we had the hind over at Whenuapai, at the Whenuapai Air Show, just on display, because we've got a hawker hind as well. And Prince Charles stopped and read Dad's name. And as boys, my brother and I as boys, well, this is exciting. You know, Prince Charles read Dad's name, you know, because he'd recovered it. So yeah, I'm going to meet the king. Anyway, not really, but shit, I've just lost. I'm trying to be funny. Yes, that's right. I remember coming home and all this wreckage was at home, and the same thing. Oh my gosh! But then there's great big wheels, and I thought, what? These wheels. When I came home with my school bag on, and there's these great big wheels, and I thought, what are these of? And Dad said, Vickers Vincent, and you're going to build it. And I'm only a kid. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, all right. And well, the cast was set. I started sandblasting and just well, we got the fuselage all put back together. There was so much missing, but Tony Hutchinson, a guy that was in charge of the workshop at Wigram, he saw what we were up to, and he says, "Wow, well, if you guys can build this, we'll give you this, and if you can build 2 of those, we'll have one." And so we got this beautiful relationship going with Wigram, and we always have. Because they could see they're doing their Oxford and P40, we were doing our Vincent. So when time comes for them to do their wildebeest, well, you know, we've got all their turtle deck, we've built it all for them. It's all down there. So we've just amazing trade. It's just come back from Wigram, helping with NZ 102. Yeah, look, I could go into detail, but it's been an immense restoration. I've learnt so much from it, so much metalwork skills, and there she is. I just persevered, I kept on going. At one stage, we just had the fuselage, and Dad actually thought, you know, well, that's it. We've proved that there is another one. We've proved that NZ 311 exists. That's good, but it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to see a fully wheel-spattered, fully collector-ringed Vickers Vincent standing on her wheels. And I focused on all that detail because that's what we want to see. People have to see this machine. And I have not stopped for 25 years. And yeah, so public speaking's not my thing, but restoration is. So yeah, yeah, and now it's got me a job in MOTAT, in charge of the troops, aviation guys at MOTAT. It's a great career choice to go after it. I'm so proud of it, and I've still got a long way to go. Its wings, oh my goodness, its wings are so basic. They will be done. They're expensive, but they're straightforward. Just time and money, yeah, and space. This is the thing. If you build the Vincent's wings, where are you going to put it? So we need to move it further out. So yeah. Yeah. So what else can I say? I've abbreviated, but it's a bit tedious to go through the whole the detail. It would take hours. I can do it, but probably not with a microphone in front of me. We can talk, and you can visit it, and you can see it, and you can grab me anytime you want. Any questions you want to ask.
I've got a question.
Stand by.
What's the most difficult part you've found so far in getting it to this stage? What has been the biggest challenge?
Those wheel fairings, the wheel spats, they're called. That would be there. It's a two-man job, but I had to do it on my own because the English wheel, you need a guy. They're so big that you need to use like what's called an English wheel, where you've got to. You need somebody on the other end of this great big wheel spat helping you shape it, and that is just megabucks. And it's so I went for I built two big concrete moulds that I was able to beat this shape into. So there's not really been any wheeling, just wheeling at the end there, just to wheel out the rough spots. But yeah, mainly I made these monstrous moulds, which I just don't know what to do with. They're huge and heavy. But anyway, they worked. I built these in my garage at home in Birkenhead, and my neighbours know me very well, to the point where I was taking photographs going next door, and this one lady, Dorothy, I said, Dorothy, just 20 minutes. I've got to beat this thing into submission, and it's only 20 minutes. And she's going, goodness me, yes, well, we have heard it. We couldn't believe what it was. Anyway, that's with the wheel spats. So when you look at the wheel spats, you can see how deep I had to get this metal down into this mould. And oh my goodness, the racket I made was insane. And yes, so I was going around my neighbours, getting to know them, and pleading with them. And they just loved the thought of what we would do, what I was doing, and loved that was conscious of them, and no problem at all. Just they were aware of it. My goodness, they were aware of it, and they all laughed. We have a bit of a laugh every now and then. Every time I see them, and they're very pleased to see it here and on display like this, and very encouraging for me. Encouraged that I'm sitting here talking about it, and I've got to do more of it, because it is an amazing story. So they're done, they're on, that is huge. Dave was the first person. I raced upstairs with the first spat I had in my lounge, and I remember taking a photograph and sending it to Dave straight away. I mean, it was just the rapport we had. His excitement for it was fuel for me to just keep going. So, everything we're doing these days. It's brilliant, Dave. Well done. So from Ian and the troops uncovering all this stuff to there she is. She was asleep in a hole in Marton. So was 102. She's back as getting her as good as we can get her. Shall we have some? Do you want to? Anyone got any questions? Have we got questions?
Are there quite a few surfaces on the aircraft that are fabric covered?
Wings, tailplane, elevators. Yeah, and rear fuselage. It's fabric.
So will that be done in the original style? Fabric covering?
Yeah. The forward fuse I did with Irish linen, so I used the right stuff. The rear fuse, well, we didn't want to go, we didn't even know if we could do it. We didn't know how far we could go with it. There's no drawings. So there's a point where you think to yourself, well, you can't go any further. But the British have a system, and Dad taught me this. Everything's to the inch. There would be a witness mark or a lightning hole. You could see you could just see how this must have ended, how this must have gone, and it would just clip into place. It just all makes sense. And so, you've just got to be confident, and there's a lot of mistakes, so you've got to be ready to waste your day, what you think would be wasting your day, because you've just made this completely wrong. And it sort of dawns on you later on why it's not fitting or why it's not working, and you come back and redo it. Be patient enough to redo it, and it would work. And there's so many stories like that. And I kind of feel a little bit sorry, because Wigram have just started this process, and I'm there for them for all that when they need me. I mean, so... and Darren Hammond down at Wigram, he's been fantastic. I mean, there was, for a long time, there was a huge floor section. There's a whole section we just couldn't account for. We couldn't make any sense of it. And Darren was aware that they had a surplus floor section down at Wigram, and we went down and had a look at it, and it just would just make so much sense. So he talked to the right people, and phone rang, and he said, come and get that floor section. So we raced down there, got that home, and it just fitted perfectly, and that was it. That was the end of the fuselage. The fuselage was just filling the gaps. So we just used calico. The calico is just for that rear fuse, just to prove that we had it, and put a K number on it, and give it its number back, and give it an identity. And from here on in, I want to really make it right. I now know that I'd like to start at the rear fuse and really make it bang on, use Irish linen and all the right stuff, and the red dope on the inside. And yeah, it's thoroughly enjoyable. Now that basically it's reverse engineering. You have to build it to build it. And that's if that makes sense. Yeah, not necessarily the metal. The metal is megabucks. Yeah. Fabric.
Have you had any funding from anywhere to help you?
No, just wages. Just my wages. That's all. None at all. Yeah. Just after work.
Does the motor run?
No.
Will it
Have to ask Nick.
Come on, Nick.
Well, there's three. With that engine, there's only 3 pistons, all right? So, but you can make that sort of stuff. You can make it. You can make that run, but you've just got to make a lot of stuff. It's there. There's a Bristol Pegasus on the front of that. Take it away and build what you need to build for it. And yes, you could run it. Yeah.
Just going back to the early days, that was one of our major problems. That, having got the airframes out, the things that were missing were power plants and propellers.
Yeah, our Pegasus is very rare.
Funnily enough, it was easier to find propellers than it was to find the power.
Well, propellers generally end up on RSA walls. And wheels end up on tractors. There's that sort of thing. There's also, actually, well, yeah. There's still a few. The prop on the Vincent was massive, but it still managed to put it on the wall at the RSA in Dargaville, that sort of thing. So yeah. And the other thing is, Dad was more Hawker Hind, because we've got an old Hawker Hind, or a couple of them, at Dairy Flat. And so Dad was very much more Hawker Hind orientated. And every time he got word or a farmer or somebody would ring him and say, hey, I've got a set of Hawker Hind undercarriage legs. This particular one was Napier. Dad drove all the way down there, and there they are, but it's a set of Vincent undercarriage legs. So the hind, so his care was the remains, or squashed flat remains of the wheel spats. So I had a lot of information, internal information I could copy through the wheel spats that Dad had recovered from Glucine. Couldn't believe it. It's almost like it's meant to be, because the wheel spats meant a lot to me. That really gives you really dresses the Vickers Vincent, and Dad comes home with a pretty manky set, but so much information. So I drew from those. I did my own drawings from those. That wreckage he brought home, and there they are. Well, yes, there is room for a rugby team. I don't know if that's true though. But yeah, apparently one of the rugby teams had to be transported quickly, and a wildebeest or a Vincent did the job. And it's not what it's cut out for, but it did the job.
I think it was Omaka to Nelson or something. It wasn't a long distance, but might have even been across to Rongotai. But yeah, the interesting thing about this aircraft, the design, you can see right at the front there is where the pilot sits, and there's a gun sight just in front of him. So it's a single pilot. Right behind him there's that opening. That's where the navigator or observer would sit. Back in those days they were observers. And then down the back was where the air gunner and wireless operator would sit. But there's actually a massive space in there. and it's basically what they call a tunnel, isn't it? And you can go backwards and forwards between the rear cockpit and the centre cockpit, and also you lie down to sight for the bombs or the torpedoes too, don't you? So there's like another section underneath where the navigator sits. They were out in the open air. It was an open cockpit, and these guys would go out patrolling way out to sea, quite well in the early part, 1930s, and sort of up to about 1942, I think. They'd go on quite long patrols, just searching for German aircraft, German ships, or anything like that. I think they'd patrol for a couple of hours or 3 hours, and they would be travelling only, well, the maximum I think was about 110 miles an hour, maximum speed, but they would cruise at about 90 miles an hour, nice and low, so that if they saw anything, they could get a good look at it. So you think it's quite a slow, docile type of aircraft, which is what you need for reconnaissance work. But the really interesting thing is that these were fully aerobatic. So you could actually loop one of these. You could actually roll them, and they did occasionally. In fact, there was supposedly, we can't find any documentation of this, but there was supposedly in the late 1930s, or sort of 37, around there, a bit of a display team with 3 of the wildebeests going around the country doing formation loops together and things like that. The very first of the New Zealand wildebeests that was built at Brooklands or Vickers Weybridge was demonstrated to the New Zealand High Commissioner and a bunch of other dignitaries from New Zealand who were getting to see what they'd purchased, and this is in 1935. And Mutt Summers, the test pilot for Vickers, took up NZ 101 and did a display, and there's actually footage of it where he's doing some stall turns and loops and rolls, and I mean, it's just incredible. And I've been really privileged over the years. I don't think there's any of them left now, but I've talked to people who actually flew Vincents and wildebeests, either in their training or actually operationally and general reconnaissance patrol work. I've talked to one who flew one out of here, towing the target. They all said they were absolute delight to fly. They were really light on the controls, and they were just like a tiger moth to fly, which is incredible because it's such a huge thing. But Steve very kindly allowed me to sit in the cockpit once when it was up at the old place, and when you sit in there, you do feel like you're in a small aircraft because all the bulk is behind you, isn't it? And all you've got is a little bit of a nose in the engine, and you really do feel like you're in a small aircraft. Quite a remarkable airplane, and there's not much left around of any of the sort of late 20s, early 30s British bombers, and this is one of the finest examples. So it's a real credit to Steve and to his dad, Don, for collecting all the bits together and working out where they will go. We'd love to see the wings on it and get it finished one day, but you're going to need a proper museum for that to put it into. But yeah, are there any other questions out there? Antonio?
I've got a couple. First of all, how did your dad find out about the prop being at Dargaville at the RSA? But number 2, the tailplane struts. Now, isn't there a difference between the wildebeest and the Vincent? One was slightly skewered.
That's the difference. You've just hit the nail on the head. That is the difference. They're that the whole tail on a wildebeest, it's got a screw jack. That's its trim system. All right. And if you have a look at the Vincent, it's got a trim tab. So they just run with a trim tab that you control with a wheel up in the cockpit. It's probably the same with the. But honestly, I think they just interchanged them, because you look at the wildebeest. There's a photo of a wildebeest in Singapore, trying to cover the evacuation of Singapore as the Japanese were working their way down towards Singapore. And it's got its tail is a Vincent setup. So they're so close to each other. I think it could even have been a Vincent, and they thought, no, we'll put it with the wildebeests. They're that close. They are the same aeroplane. So yeah. So that, but to answer your question, apparently that is the difference. The wildebeest will be a screwjack, and the Vincent's a trim tab.
And about the prop in Dargaville?
Oh, prop in Dargaville, a phone call to Dad. Yeah, they just hey, we got, and Dad went up there and bought it. Yeah, but I don't think it's that one, because we've got another one at home which arrived recently. It might be the Dargaville one. I'm a bit vague on the they just arrive and they get stacked up, and there's a Wapiti prop. It's a Westland Wapiti, and then there's 2 Hawker Hind props, and there's 2 Baffin props. Yeah, it's just props survive because people love them.
You like your last position on North Shore, who was ex-75 Squadron, and he actually made his mission go around in the 60s and 70s, picking up these props from God knows all over the place.
Yeah.
I think the first of these props that came back came from way down south somewhere.
Right.
And because of the length of it, you had to get an oversized car tail.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, MOTAT's got a big, huge rack full of propellers, so a lot of them probably end up at MOTAT. They get looked after. Yeah, it's the beauty of MOTAT.
Do the Air Force have any pictorial records?
Oh, lots. Yeah.
And they're giving you access?
It's not. Yeah, they do now, but they didn't used to. We have to do a lot of work for them to get those. And fair enough. That's just the way it is. It's assets and but there's lots of information, and I do look at photos now that have been released, and I go, oh shit, that's how that goes. It's a little bit more shaped, a little more involved in that cockpit where the gun. The machine gun sits at the top there, so I've put a little bit too much shape around that area. If you have a look at photographs, and I'm seeing that now, but it's like, oh, it still works. It's not so. Yeah, that's not quite right. So there's aspects of it, of the whole aeroplane, that I could zhoosh a bit, make a bit better. Even the gun door, I'm still unsure about. So that's an idea of what I'm up against. That door that closes up there. It's not made yet because I'm not 100% sure what it looks like.
Does it have an oven or a microwave?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the exhaust is another story. That is a long story. That's some dark days because they don't exist. It was hit and miss whether to get that spun because I didn't know what the shape was. So that's that exhaust system. But I've got it bang on. I know I've got it right because between myself and one of Genius at Steelworks, a guy in Wairau Valley, he's been helping me with that, and we would go, I think it's 45 degrees, and he'd try that, and then, no, maybe 35 degrees, but and finally it would be 55 degrees, bang on, and it would answer all the questions. Everything fitted into place, so we just had to come up with those. It was so much trial and error, that sort of thing, that sort of help is just, because I was I really wanted to have that collectoring, get that collectoring done, and it was a nightmare, but it's on there and it looks good.
I've seen a logbook of, I should remember his name, a senior officer on NZ Island, who later was very instrumental in achieving. And he misidentified, for instance, which was quite quickly in the record. So the pilots didn't know what they were flying, then what chance have we?
Yeah, that's right.
in a lot of the logbooks I've seen, they just put VV. They don't put whether it's a Vincent or a wildebeest, but I guess if they put the number in there, all the wildebeests were NZ1 ... and these Vincents were all NZ3 ... So that's how you tell them apart. But I think we're going to have to wind this up now because it's actually lunchtime, and the barbecue will be cranking down at Warbirds headquarters. And so thank you very much, Steve. That's been fantastic.